guy to have around, and I'm really grateful for that. Listen, it is June 5th, 2018. It was just announced that Kate Spade, she is a New York fashion designer, billion-dollar handbag company, was discovered this morning. She hung herself from one of her scarves from around the doorknob of her penthouse on Park Avenue. And I mention that with a heavy heart, because anytime someone takes their life, it disturbs me, because there is a solution. Obviously, Kate Spade's solution was not fame. She had that. Wasn't her family. She had a great family. She had a husband. She had a 13-year-old daughter. She had wealth extraordinary. It's not the things of the world that can bring you through. It is the Lord. And I'm not picking on her for not knowing the Lord or turning to the Lord. I'm just saying that if you are in that place of deep, dark depression to the point where you want to take your life, I mean, we've seen some really remarkable, powerful, wealthy, famous people take their own. Robin Williams, you know, and Soundgarden's singer, and then all these different musicians have been hanging themselves. And you know, this world is tough. It's a dark, heavy place if you're part of that currency. And there's a solution, and it's a light that came into this world. That's what John says. He came into the world, and he gives a light that can't be had any other way. The light of gold and fame and all the other things of this world do not necessarily fulfill us. And so I just want to encourage you, as you tune into this show, in the archives or live or whenever, remember that God so loved the world, he sent his son to be a light, and the light shined in the darkness. And just remember that. So last week I heard some pretty astounding news in the media, and it left me asking, how much money is enough money? Especially when it comes to religion. I know we talk about this. I talk about it a lot because I think it's going to be something that brings down Christianity as it is known today in the world. The first revelation, which many of you may or may not be aware, is a researcher from one of the wikis, says that from some pretty astute research, the LDS Church, Mormons, have $31 billion investment portfolio. $31 billion, that's just the money like you might have an IRA or some money in your savings for your retirement. Well, it's just their investment money. That's not real estate, that's not other tangible assets, it's just their investment money. $31 billion. You know, if they only got 5% on that money, they would get a daily yield of about $5 million. A daily yield of $5 million. That's just from the interest on that money if at 5%, and you know that they're going to get much more than that. So, yet they continue to place their membership under tithes. 10%. Give more. Give this offering, give that offering, give to this cause, give money. And that ties into what we opened up with some very wealthy people having money, but it doesn't do it. That's not what this is about. Then we have this yokel, name it and claim it pastor, two of them actually, but one that stands out. He has owned 3 planes in the past, and he has come out and he's told his supporters this past week that God told him he needs to have a $56 million plane. Now, what are people who are sitting in their chairs who make, you know, a couple $100s a week, and they work hard, and they're not making much money, and they look at this, how long are we going to put up with that? And then what will happen as we continue to tie money to God and Jesus and church? Something's going to happen. The grassroots are going to say one day, we have had enough of your show. And I'm just trying to address it before it happens. I think the millennials and others are going to come up as a generation, and all these edifices and stuff are going to crack and fall because they're not going to play into the game anymore. That guy's reasoning for a $56 million plane was that if Jesus was on earth today, he wouldn't be riding a donkey. That's what he said, inferring that he would be riding in a $56 million plane. Listen, Jesus said it really plainly. He said, it's impossible to serve God and mammon, God and money. You cannot. He says you'll love the one, you'll hate the other, and so you can't serve two masters. And so when the money gets in that mix, now I've heard all of the things. It takes money to do things in the world, and it takes money to, you got to pay your bills as a church, and even Jesus had a bag with his apostles of funds, and then there's the biblical justification that tithing was an Old Testament practice at Abraham, and it applies today, and pastors can live off the spoils of the carnal spoils of the flock, and I know all those things, but let's get down to some brass tacks. The gospel of Jesus Christ is free. It is absolutely without price. Come buy without money is what Isaiah said prophetically. The gospel requires no financial upkeep. Let's say that campus and all the churches in Utah just shut down today. Well, people would wake up tomorrow and they would still have Christ in them by the Spirit. They would still know the truth of the gospel, and it would continue to go on with them sharing it with other people. That's the wonderful thing about it. It can survive without finances. Now, so when you have something that requires finances, you have to take part of your mind or your heart, and you have to say, okay, we got to serve that a little bit so that we can, and when it gets bigger and bigger, it gets worse and worse. What should be preached and taught at churches should be absolutely free. In my estimation, the only way we can stem the tide, and this is Christianarchy today, and this is about causing a change from you guys' group on down, the coming generations, is refuse to... It was an angel. It is to refuse to pay into the material monolithic churches. Don't do it. Just start it now. Just don't do it. And outright refuse, and then we might say, well, what would happen? And I think what would happen if people were able to do that is that the churches would begin to deconstruct themselves. They would say, we can't meet these big budgets anymore, we have to downsize. Okay, we can't do that anymore, we have to downsize. We need to move into a less ornate place. We need to get out from this heavy mortgage. We need to stop doing tent revivals that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars a day or not tent revivals, but the music revivals and all that stuff. So I'm talking about refusing pastors and preachers who are asking or even demanding in the name of God from a pulpit for your money. That's the thing. I'm not saying that if you're in a position and you are inclined to give by the Spirit to support a church and what they're doing, whatever, that's between you and God. But I'm just saying if you have a person of power who is saying, give to us, the church, so that we can share the gospel, I would suggest that is a problem. And, here's the thing, and we're going to wrap it up with this. It's a pastor's job to get congregates to learn to trust God. If a person comes to a pastor and says, my son's in jail, and I just don't know what to do, and the pastor's job is to help that person and help the son learn to trust God with the situation and to rely on God. If someone comes to them and says, I have this problem, it's the pastor's job to say, walk in faith, trust God. I have a moral problem. It's the pastor's job to tell them, did Jesus pay for your sin? Trust in Jesus with your moral problem. He will help you overcome your moral problem. That's the pastor's job. It's the pastor's job for themselves to live by that. So when they have a problem with maintaining the finances of the church, the pastor should be the first one to trust in God, not rely on the arm of men. The pastor should be getting to God and saying, I need your help. We're behind. Can you bring someone to help us? And trust in God to provide the solution rather than men. But pastors don't do that. Pastors put it on people, but they will teach the people to put it on God. And I just think it's time that all the pastors learn, or start to learn, if you can, to trust in God. It's not easy. It's difficult. But where God leads, God exceeds. He will provide, and he'll have you run through the forest. Even personally, I would encourage you personally to trust in the Lord with things. Trust in the Lord with your health. Trust in the Lord with your finances, with your job, with your future, with your children. Trust him. He will show you that it's not going to be an easy thing. Your faith will be tested. But trust in the Lord, and he comes through. And when he does, it's so radical that you're like, I can't even hardly believe this occurred. And when you have those experiences, your humility toward him, your honor toward him, your love toward him, your faith in him grows, and you become a stronger Christian. That is walking by faith, which is what all Christians are called to do, but especially pastors. Out!